evening your time, good Saturday morning for me here in Asia. All right, I got a lot to go over. I'll be making another video probably your Sunday evening on what I think is going on in the market, the silver, just everything related the war cycle, because there's certainly a lot of news, and I'll give you my take both near term and longer term. Not a lot has changed, but I will update that. In the interim, here's a whole bunch of miners, non-miners, broken into various categories. So let's start with gold and gold miners. And why do I say gold and gold miners? Because you people that are income oriented like to buy ETFs. That's what I started my YouTube channel around. However, as you know, with Patreon, it's all about the commodity super cycle. I know some of you would love to think that Bitcoin's going to run to the moon and that's where you ought to go. Certainly, it'll get a bounce. It could get a 50% bounce, but I don't think it's ready. It's obvious that it's not ready to challenge the commodity super cycle and call itself a store of wealth, a store of value, or a digital gold at this point. If that changes, I will certainly recommend it. So, gotten several comments that you guys all want to go back and play that cycle. That's all right. Do it. But I'm not going to join the club. I'm not going to be a fanboy for Bitcoin at this point because it has to prove it to me, just like the gold and silver miners had to wake up and prove it to me. Gold was running for 2 years, and I didn't start my Patreon or the commodity super cycle because I needed further evidence. Well, the same thing exists with Bitcoin. Go play it. How many of you come crying to me because you lost half or three quarters of your wealth around the yield liar ETF and many others out there of the fanboys who really are professional YouTubers? And don't ever forget that. They're not your friends. They're not trying to make you money. They're professional YouTubers. When you see someone on YouTube have a list more than their recommendations of all their affiliate associations between t-shirts and Amazon books, just understand what they are. It's not that they're bad people. I wouldn't even say they're liars. They're just incentivized. And now it's obvious that some of the former Yale Max fanboys certainly are being paid by the firms. I could be paid by the firms, but you have a sense of obligation to sort of recommend their stuff if they're paying you. You may ever, it's kind of like a reviewer. If I get shipped a free laptop, desktop, a particular computer part, then I know the people say, hey, I'm going to call it like it is. Well, you keep calling it like it is and you say negative stuff, they're going to stop paying you. So just understand that. And YouTube is very clear on that. I think there's still some people out there who may lose their YouTube channels that were being paid under the table. It's kind of like NCAA and all the sports stuff. Well, they used to pay high school that went to college athletes under the table for a long time before there was NIL. And now it's a mix, and I won't go to that team, or I'll go over there to that team for 1 year, and I got a bigger, better deal. Everybody's running around with a bigger, better deal. Look, guys, I got 45 years in. I've made a lot of money. I've lost a lot of money getting there. So you learn a few things through that process. So when you're listening to somebody that's got 5 or 10 years, maybe 15 in the markets, they haven't even ridden through big bust, right? How many of these guys have ridden through the 2008? Did they have maximum amount of cash that time? Or even back into the 2000 bubble? It's brutal, guys, and there's a lot of signs out there. There's a lot of warning signs. So those of you that missed my rant, here they are, man. It's easy. I could rant all day about the garbage and the crap I see out there. But instead, I'm just trying to help you guys. All right, so let's jump in. Having said that, now look, you guys are free to say, hey, Bruce, you didn't cover this one or you missed it. But if somebody jumps on here and says, this is the fourth time and you left XYZ off, get a grip. Okay, nobody's perfect. I try and put as much as I can. I spend hours. This is probably a 12-hour effort just to get this sort of up to speed. So sometimes things are going to be missed. But I'm out there and I'm looking for you guys. So at least be kind. Say, hey, you may want to look at this one. And 80% of you do that. It's 20% that just their mothers didn't teach them manners. Maybe they didn't have a mother, right? I pity that poor fool, though, because, having parents who at least taught you something is very, very important. I can't stress that enough. You only get one. You only get one real biological mother and one real biological father. And I got to tell you, I miss mine all the time. My dad was a worker and my mom was a stay-at-home until we got out of high school, and then she went back to work. She went back and got her degree in accounting. She was always a bookkeeper before that. My mother taught me so many things about math and science and people. My father taught me just a lot of lessons. Stay away from drugs. Stay away from this. He was a bomber pilot in World War II. He saw a lot of death around him at, early 20 years old. I can't imagine it. My brother did 2 tours in Vietnam. So, I can appreciate people, and the only thing I can say is I've been to 66 plus countries in the world. So you learn a few things when you get out and you see cultures. You know, I was shocked when I learned that the Brits call math maths. I said, it's not plural, it's math. Well, that's my view, right? They were doing maths before we were in existence. So just a lot of little tiny things, whether it's the windscreen or the boot or that's just the beginning of the differences in the world. And now we're mixing cultures and now we're in war cycles. This is when a lot of the great empires implode. Okay, it's a very dangerous time in the world if you haven't figured that out. And I'm not even getting into political views. You talk about religion, politics, you can go deep. And how about AI, guys? AI is coming and it's coming in a massive way. It's not always on the investment cycle. There will be some investments, but it's what it's doing to disrupt our society, our work, our income levels. I'll talk about that more and I'll have some opportunities for you in time. All right, let's jump into these guys. So, what I'm trying to do here is I broke this into gold and into silver and then into commodities. And I talk about funds, both income oriented funds and non income. And again, I'm going to miss something sometimes, okay? But I'm going to cover a lot. So I hope somebody tries to do this kind of stuff so that I can go out and wrangle them a little bit. Oh, you missed this. How could you not look at this? That's the fourth time you've done that. So if you're going to treat me that way, I'm going to block you. I'm going to kick you out of my Patreon if you treat me like that. Okay. I don't need it. I need suggestions. We have a lot of smart people. The collective wisdom is always greater than any single individual. I don't know it all, never have, never will. We're all learning this together. I just happen to know a little bit more about the commodity super cycle for you guys that are younger. Been there, done that, as they say. Okay, so ASA, let's take a look here. There's a lot of important data, and you guys miss a lot of this in the way I characterize this. So when it has a yield, I say, hey, 2 times a year they pay. Obviously, it's not much. Look at the 6 month and the 12-month yield, nor did it have to be, but I want to point that out, right? Because even a fund that only pays yearly, here's GOEX. It's an excellent ETF for gold and silver miners. Think of it like a GDX. It's just an independent. I could have put UserX up here. That's another one that has a lot of, it's truly global and has Australian miners. So there's a number, but the list would just get bigger and bigger, and they're all in the general area. Well, one of the best performers, just look at our 3-month gain. So that tells you a lot. I know Joanne loves this one. I'm happy to have Joanne on board in the last few months. She did. Guys, if you want somebody that chased all the high yield income funds and Bitcoin and all that stuff. Joanna, very smart about that. I'm happy she's in the Patreon. And I know you guys chat with her and she contributes here. She's been there, done that in terms of these high yield funds and seen that. And she's figuring out the commodities. She can trade, she can do various things. So, Joanne, love having you here. Um, the other thing about that is look at this. So, on a 3-month basis, pretty close. ASA is performing 56%, 39. So, why do I put in here sometimes 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months? Because I didn't in these, but in my database of 880 now gold, silver, and some copper miners, I want to see things trending. It's hard because I'm producing content and managing my Patreon, so I can't even attend to that. But I'm promising you that I'm going to be doing more of that and catch you on some of these miners that are really starting to move. I'm going to put this video out on YouTube. So I'm not giving away picks and all that. These are individual stocks. This is more about yield and which funds in the commodity super cycle are performing. But it's not individual stock picks. It's not options recommendations, all this stuff that you guys know I do behind the paywall and Patreon. Okay. So one of the best performers. And then look as you go to the 6-month gains, it's 126 to 116, 295 to 232. Now you can go here with Gamco's GGM. That's a global gold and natural resources income trust. So that drops off, and it's not just specifically, but somebody had recommended me to put it on the list several months ago, so it's on there. It is a monthly payer, okay? And so when you look at the yields, it's 8.85, but it's not in a true sense of being a gold oriented or gold miner oriented ETF, but it's there. But you can see it's nowhere over the last 12 months. And that's an important factor when I show you some of these commodity funds, because some of them did average over 12 months, but you look at the 6 month and you look at the 3 month, and they're starting to take off. Okay. So if you look here in a 3 month, I've been putting G instead of N for NAV. So 3-month gain. Okay. Could be a loss. I'd make it red, but 3-month gain, then 3-month total return. Well, these aren't going to vary a lot because these aren't payers, right? Excluding this one, you're talking about a whole 12-month yield of 8%. Here's one, the Van X GDXJ, right? It pays only in December, but it still got a 5% yield. Okay. So that's what you want to look at here. And over here, I got all the numbers to support it. But you're talking about GDMN being a winner for 12 months. It's with total return because it does pay that, small amount. So a great, great fun, but you don't always have, what, sometimes one's a great fun and then it stops being the best fun. But nobody on here is horrible. I mean, if you look at GDXJ, 200, who hates 228% gain over the last 12 months? Well, none of you guys that are chasing high yield income are going to get that. And I'm going to show you some examples of that. Some of the worst funds that some of you guys pick are the ones you're in, and you're losing money. They're paying you like crazy on the NAV, and you're losing money. You're reliving yield loser. I mean, I just don't get it. Okay, there's my rant. All right. So I'll let you look at these numbers, look at the funds. If you see something I'm missing, feel free to comment. All right. So here's some known ones. GDXY has been around for 18 months, maybe going on 2 years. I said when it came out that I thought long term it's going to be a great performer. Well, nobody wanted to hear that when Misty and Coney and Nvidia and Tesla and everything were running. Although Tesla got its comeuppance, she figured out real quick that fund doesn't let you recover. So yield loss, yield losers, they ain't getting it done. And then, what are people doing? Oh, Chippy. Yeah, yeah, they do. You pick one out of 60, right? That's just kind of maintaining its nav. Well, I can do that with granite. I can go find one that's turned up, but they're nav rotors typically. But when they turn up, they pay pretty well. But that's a selection game. You got to constantly play the selection. So what I did here is I showed these funds. Well, when you show them, it's very difficult to compare. Look at, I got Nicholas, right? The Nicholas X funds. Here's their gold one because I'm covering the category of gold, but they haven't paid yet. But I did want to update you guys and teach you something. So they launched on February 18th at 20.44. So hey, they're up, 9%, almost 10% in like 6 or 7 trading days, however many it works out from the 18th to the 27th. Okay. And I expect their first distribution to declare likely on March 6th. Where did I get that? Well, I got that from going in and looking at other funds that pay weekly. How many days, calendar days, did they exist before they declared? And it was 18. Well, we're like 12 in. So we need like 5 or 6 more days to be there. So I'm showing the end of next week. It's very likely they then declare if they're a Tuesday payer or whatever they're going to be. I didn't recheck. So that's forthcoming. But the silver's done much better, as you'd expect. Their SLVX. And I cover that when I jump down to my silver category. So there you go, guys, on that. So we can't really compare them. But look at this. How many of you chase this kind of crap, right? Granite, Nugget. Oh, yeah, they pay, right? Look at their yield. It's actually didn't beat GDXW here, right? 1764 to 1753. But look at their NAV. Look at the difference here. So you got 3 funds radically behaving differently. And it all has to do with what their methodology is underneath. And so you guys that chase this, I get asked all the time by Granite Shares to interview Will. I interviewed Will a couple of years ago, but I'm not in the interview game now. What do I want to interview a fund that honestly I can't recommend? I don't have good faith to recommend. I'd have a private one-on-one conversation, but I don't want to have an interview because I'm going to tell them what I think. You suck in total return, right? They know it, but it's their methodology underneath. And you look at Roundhill, 3-month gain, 46.57. Now, 3-month total return, because they're paying like crazy, right? 17.53, but their NAV loss. How do you lose money since the start? Now, what I did down here is I do same dates, right? So we got a whole bunch of people that started different. They launched November the 18th. So I took everybody here and put them in that category. So there's enough data to do a 3-month comparison, nothing else, right? You can't really go out here. You look at these zeros and 6-month gain and 6-month total return. You can go look at GDXY, but you don't have a comparison there because these funds haven't been there. So anyway, that's what I wanted to make sure you knew. I knew about the Nicholas ones and covering them. Okay, so here's GDXY. I thought I would go get one that's not a big payer and then look at GDX here. So here's a non-payer, but they're all based on GDX. Now Nugget does their own, but that's the bottom line. They're based on GDX. So what did GDX itself do? Well, with its annual dividend, which is not a lot, right? When you look over since November 18th and you add that little sliver in because they pay once a year, you get to 54. Well, look at GDXW. You talk about a great income fund that's capturing 50 out of 54%, 3 month or November 18th to Friday, February 27th. How do they do that? Because of their methodology. They're using leverage. It's 120%. Why not? We're in a commodity super cycle. Yeah, I know. If we pull back, they're going to go down a little more. They're not going to go down more than Nuggy's going to go down. My God. I mean, looking at the November 18th only, I mean, I just don't understand why you guys throw money. And I say you guys. I mean, the general, anybody that's in the fund, obviously people are buying it. I'm not trying to knock it. I like their CEO a lot. Will, he's a smart guy. Been there, done that. He started in Europe. He's a Brit. Eh, and they've got some of the 5X leverage funds that you can do in Euroland. Not like they're evil or bad people. It's just, you have a choice of where you live, who you have as friends, where you put your money. So I always say treat your money like you treat other things, right? Like you treat your kids or you treat your wife or your husband or your family. Okay. So put your money where it's treated best, right? Money has feelings. I know most of you don't think that, but I'll bet you it does. I've never had a, paper currency cry, but it's probably wanted to at times. And if I get sad, I just pull out some of my gold. There's nothing like looking at physical gold or physical silver. That 0.999 stuff, it's pretty. I don't touch it because I keep it in containers, but I can open it and look at it. All right, guys. So enough on that. Let's look. How about physical? And again, you have minor oriented, right? Now, sometimes, and you see this in silver, sometimes when silver moves, it equals what the silver miners are doing. Some days silver goes up and the miners don't go up. But over the life cycle of this commodity super cycle, we will have very close to a 2x or more. I'd say 2.5x through most of these commodity super cycles by the time it's all done on what a silver miner producer will do versus what the underlying metal will do. But during the runs, depending on where you are in the silver cycle within the commodity super cycle, sometimes the physical silver will outperform the miners, but that's like saying the dollar and gold and silver run together. Sometimes they do. You're going to have 2 or 3 months where the dollar is going up and gold and silver are going up, but typically they have an inverse relationship. Same thing with the stock market. When the dollar goes up, usually the stock market goes down, but they can have an inverse. You can have a melt up where everything runs together for 3 or 4 months. It's like, wow, what's going on? Why is gold and why is silver and why is the stock market? And why is the dollar all going up? They normally have inverse relationships because if everything was perfect, if Elliott wave was perfect, nobody would do anything but analyze stocks based on Elliott wave. So all these things are probabilities. I love Elliott wave. I love stochastics, right? I love RSIs. I love a lot of things that try to give you an edge, but no single thing does. Like right now, the next video I'm going to do on Sunday is to talk about where I think we're going, both short term and long. I know where we're going longer term later in the year. The short term is the hard part. It's driven by socioeconomic, political, war cycle. There's a lot of things out there that can send it one way or the other. So I'll talk more about that. And then you add the banksters into the equation and you spoofing and how much physical is short and so much speculation, guys. You can get lost on that. Follow some basic principles. buy this stuff when it's cheaper, okay? And then trim some profits as you go. That doesn't mean you sell everything. And if you're in my Patreon, you have a big advantage. I put out really good content in there about what you can buy. And I'm going to touch on a little bit here. But again, as you guys know, I update on things. And what was a recommendation 3 weeks ago may not now be a recommendation, or it may have run its course and is likely to pull back. All right. So on these guys, here's this all same start data. So the why is GDX in there? Because they're all sort of using that as the underlying. So you want to see how well something performs, because sometimes when you look at Max, what are they getting? 3-month total return, 23 out of 54. Okay. I usually say 35%. In this case, they're more like 40 plus. Not bad for them. But I look at Max. We've been in the commodity super cycle for, argue certainly August. August, we really took off. For 6 months. You haven't even gotten back to the $20 in GDXY. We've been 77, right? And when silver got slammed down in late January, this thing went down into the 50s at some point. Now we're right back up there at 75, 79, right? Because we're at 94 silver. All right, so let's keep going. How about physical income? What do you buy? I didn't really, well, these don't have any yield, so the numbers are fine. The numbers are the numbers. Um, and this one's the inverse, right? That's why they're all negative, right? So dull is an inverse of shiny. I forgot those were even in there almost. Now, physical with income. So a lot of you guys like these kinds of things. So then I did it all with the same date. Here's the problem here. You have some newbies, K Gold, right? GLDW, which is the physical gold income on Roundhill, as opposed to GDXW, the gold miners, right? So you're talking physical gold versus miners. And you'll see that when I show that elsewhere, that's like a 2-to-1 performance difference. Look at this. So the 3 month, well, I used that date, but for almost 50% on GDXW. You don't have that on GLDW. You have 33 because you have leverage with the miners. Okay, you almost always do on gold. Silver, sometimes not. There'll be a period of time where we're very close to peaking and the gold's still moving up and silver's still moving up and the miners stop moving up. That's usually a good indication you're very toppy, you're very stretched. But when we compare all the funds, Gold used to be the leader, but GLW is slightly ahead. But I call that even, 33.21 versus 33.29. And we used the launch date, right, of October 30th. We have to make everybody the same here, right? And then GLDN is the Nicholas Wealth Fund, as I mentioned up above. So we should be getting a distribution. And you can't really compare it because it doesn't have the stats. But I can tell you it's up like 9% since it launched on February 8th, but it hasn't made its first distribution. So I can't really give you anything there. I don't know what's going on here. Let me see. I brought this stuff over. Let me see if something is being missed here. What is going on with Goldie? Current price, 3 month. Oh, look at that. That's brutal. Yeah, Defiance. Hello. Although I got to tell you guys, on Defiance, on USOI, I call that one that it was a turnaround. I know some of you hate it because they're navy rotors, but I'm very bullish on oil and on USO, the underlying, which is an ETF on oil. So that thing is paying well. It's kind of like Ulti in the sense of when Ulti flattened and started to move up, then Ulti at least had a high yield, but otherwise it was a navy rotor, so everybody hated it. But the reality in it, if you were in it for 3 or 4 months when it flattened and moved up slightly, you got a lot of yield. It was okay. Again, you have to be selective. Well, I think oil goes a lot higher over time. That doesn't mean that if we don't run to 100, pull back to 70, and run to 140. So there'll be periods of time, but I just happen to have some old USOI. I bought at 10, it went down to 6, and I've been collecting dividends, and now it's 720 or something like that. I forget the number. So I'm okay with that, right? It's not a whole lot. I'm okay with getting paid. And it's moving up. Why? Because the underlying is moving up. So there are not a lot of income funds around the commodities. There's getting to be more. You know, the Curve is announced is it KCOP? Anyway, they have a copper oriented fund. Based on their gold and silver, that should be pretty good. But I'm not covering copper right here in this particular video. I have a lot of other videos from my Patreon members that you guys know that I cover individual stocks and even on nickel and on some other stuff. So that's the problem here, guys. You know, it's that only look at everybody else in this group. What's their percent of high relative from their October 30th? Okay. They're at 99, 99, 91. Well, why is this one 91? Because it pays so much, right? They're at 94 over here. So how do they beat a goal? Well, they do it with their distribution, 8.94 versus 3.14, because the curve gold actually beat in that NAV 30 to 24.35. But there was these are tied. You can't argue one's really any better. You're just getting a little more income along the way in GLDW. But I really like GXDW for the miners. All right, guys. So that's the scenario there. Let's jump over to silver. Okay. And again, if I miss something, let me know. Just be kind. Okay. So we got SLJY, which I like a lot, right? So it's miners, it's monthly. Do I wish it was weekly? Yeah. Well, we have a weekly now. And I bought it, right? I think day 2, not day 1. But I bought it like 21.20 or 21.30. It launched and closed the first day at 21.02. I don't know if it's going to perform. It's got the team from Misty loss, right? And so I don't completely trust them, but maybe they've learned their lesson. Maybe over at Nicholas, they're going to do something better. They're at least in the right category of performer, right? They're doing it on gold and silver. But do I trust them or do I know the fund's going to perform? No. But I got to say, from the NAV so far, we're at 25.49. I even bought on the second day in the low 21s. So I got a nice almost 20% gain in the NAV in 6 or 7 trading days. And we'll see what they pay. Same thing. I'm expecting March 6th, guys. They may declare, on the Nicholas, if they declare on Thursday evening or Friday morning, I have to see how it all, but that's when I'm expecting something. And based on where silver, if they pay horrible, I'll know right away. If they pay great, I'll go, okay, that's good, but let's see if it's consistent, right? So I give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's see how that thing is going to do. Uh, but just based on that, I'm saying, hey, they got a 3 month gain of 21.27 if you bought it at 21.02 or less on the first day it traded. It's not bad, right? All these other guys are in 3 months. They're in, 10 days. But it has been a very hot 10-day period. So these guys are non-income oriented funds. They're going to do the yearly distribution, right? SIL and SILJ. And SLJY both is follows the 12-year fund that Amplify did when they launched SILJ. So they buy some SILJ, and then they also buy the Heclas and the Pan American Silvers and the other big silver companies, and they write half the option. They leave room so that their NAV can grow. But you have funds. So when you see here over a 3 month yield, they have 4.3. Let me make sure I updated that. Yeah, I got it. Let me make sure that's picking up on everything. U to W should be. Those are the categories, U to W. Okay. They just announced this 0.695, their largest yet. So that one will be, um, I think that's paid on Monday. I know it was declared on Thursday or Friday. And then Nicholas, again, I mentioned they moved up, but we probably won't even get a declaration till next Friday. And then Themes is in the ballpark. So again, you can't really compare SLVX, uh, but otherwise we can see everybody is in the 3 month category. So SLVP is a 50% gainer. SILJ, not known as an income fund annually, is 54. And many of you like SLVR, the Sprott, and that's kind of the highest 3 month gainer, 62%. So when you add everything in, you've got one, two, three 50% gainers, almost 50%. Themes as an AGMI. So they've got a gold and they've got a silver oriented miner. I didn't drag those down, guys. And I think they pay monthly. No, I think they only pay annually. Yeah. All right. So on the physical silver, everybody knows about AGQ because we talk about it a lot in Patreon. And many of us have made a lot of money. I was holding about 1,000 shares at $35, moving into $30 and $40 silver. Had it for a while at 35, and it didn't go anywhere. Nothing worse than, gold and silver. They don't earn any interest. You're not making any income unless you're in an income fund, and then you're not going to get the same gain percentage. So that's what happens. It's patient. But that thing literally ran from $35 to up into the 400s, 480 or something. I mean, when silver moves, it's incredible. And then when you're in these leverage funds, it's incredible on top of that. I don't recommend it all the time, but there are setups where you can really, really win. Look at this, 399%. It's 12-month return, and it's only at 44% of its high because its high was $120 on silver. So it was $431, guys. That's a nice 193. I still own some of my 35 and 185 calls that I'll roll out. I'll roll out and up. And I've been doing that for a while. And here's SLV, right? Just a simple, I don't recommend holding this forever because if we get a true physical silver squeeze, they're going to have a harder time buying physical silver, and they may have to limit new buys or something. But I don't see a confiscation issue at this time. I think that requires 250, 300 silver. And even if that happens, they may just come out and say, hey, due to war, crisis, and a critical metal, you can only hold 50 ounces. If you have more than 50 ounces, we want you to sell it to us at a certain price. I hope we don't get to that. But you do have to understand that silver and copper, from an electrification standpoint, heavy, heavy industrial use, especially in the AI genre and electrification in the world. These emerging countries want what all the first world countries have. And that's what you see if you travel the world. I know some of you do, especially in my Patreon, we talk about that. But if you're so busy in your work and it's domestic and you don't see the world and you just hear all the news stuff, it's hard to really understand that first world countries have a lot of advantages. They're decaying from within. The infrastructures are getting old. I mean, just you want to see the Middle East, go look at Dubai and you see the amount of money. But that's richness on a commodity. It's richness on oil and some of the other smaller countries as well that have a lot of oil. All right, guys. So ZSL is the inverse. Many of you know, by the way, if you didn't catch it, it had a reverse 10 for 1 split. I sort of call that when I was buying it at sub $2. It can't go on forever. If silver wants to go back to $55, then, ZSL may have gone to $4 or $5, but it didn't have any runway to go down. They were forced into that. I could see it, I knew it. And so it was no surprise when I saw the 10 for 1. So we went back to 18 when it implemented, and already because silver ran to 94, ZSL is 15. So I buy it when I anticipate silver going down. It's a good insurance policy and a way to play. But look at Aberdeen. A lot of you like SIVR. PSLV, interesting, when I did this, underperform SLV. I don't really, I mean, not by much, right? They're almost dead even on the 3 month and 3 month total return. They start to fall behind on the 6 month. It's not a lot. I prefer that you're in PSLV because they can't really spoof it. You don't have JP Morgan being their custodian like you do with SLV. So I don't completely trust the banksters, as you guys know. All right, UBS and KSLV. I feel like I'm missing something here, another one, but I can't think right now because most of them are miners. Everything I know is silver miner oriented. I'm sure there's some other silver players, but I really think that KSLV is probably the best right now. When you look at SLVO, now look at the distributions though. So look at the 3 month yield. They kill KSLV on distribution. So 3 month yield is 17.28. That's 1.5 times. But look over here. It doesn't take a genius to say the 3 month total return is 20.15 because they only went up 2.88. But they had a 17% distribution. They pay once a month. Both these are monthly payers. Look at this 7.9098, 5.7. And now the rest of the previous months are all in the ones and twos. And you see here, they kicked up. Curve was going along at 50 cents, 50 cents, 55, 75, 75. Right. So don't get confused. You have to correlate the price. What's the price of the asset? $97 is 2 to 1. So obviously this exceeds 2 to 1. It's like 10 to 1. But don't get fooled. Wouldn't you rather have a total return of 72.91 versus 20? It's triple. And it's all because the NAV. So just know what you're doing with your income fund. Some of you really need income, and I help you. Right now, to me, you know, GDXW is one of the best for minor income. All right, guys, let me cover some of the commodity stuff. This is a more simple one. And by the way, since I'm going to put this out on YouTube, if anybody needs to talk to me about how you transition, you need a consultation, send me an email at bruce2500 at gmail. I have my bruce at targetedwealthcreation.com as well. But you can just go, this has been out there. I use it every day. I check it many, many times a day. I certainly check my Bruce at targetedwealthcreation.com, also all one word. But And if you want to look at our Patreon, go take a look at it. Actually, this one should probably be TWC 100. So you're welcome to join. You're welcome to come over there as a free member. There are not much benefits as a free. I've got 3 or 4 tiers there, and really the second, third, and fourth tiers are where all the value is. Very little value in the low tier. Um, so what do we have here? And I'm going to go in and I'm going to cover my other emerging markets where there's some really killer gains. But at least this is various ETF companies. You got Granite, Invesco, First Trust, Aberdeen, Invesco again, Harbor, UCSF, Van Eck. Now, it's not completely fair to have a lithium in here because lithium, along with the rare earths, has been pretty hot. And then I do show the Brazil fund, and I do show um, a smaller cap Brazil fund. So net results, guys, there's data here, and the big performer is the lithium fund. Now there's other competitors. So in Patreon, I do videos on the other competitors. I talk about it. I cover other rare earth metals, which miners are digging those up, which miners are doing better. So there's a lot of deep dive stuff that I do on Patreon that obviously I'm not doing. I know you guys at YouTube would love for me to go out and cover Round Hill and show you every fun in there. But guys, 80% of it's junk. 80% of it, you're going to get nowhere. Or you're going to have, this particular fund for 3 or 4 months move, then sell off hard. When you can be in a commodity super cycle and run 4 or 5 years with it. Sure, it's going to move up tremendously and retrace also, but you're going to be in other funds that are going to move up, retrace, and then get killed. And that's not a good setup, guys. So if you want to ever talk about that stuff and set up a private consult and get out of some of these yield traps that you're in and figure out the commodity super cycle, I'm happy to do that. Send me an email here. We can set up something. I do that all the time. I help a lot of people with that. Then they get behind Patreon, and then they don't need a lot of consultations. Some of my Patreon members want it, and they sign up for every other month to have a call. That's my top tier. But it's pretty cheap. I also do options. I teach people options. I also, in my options tier, provide a lot of option plays for you guys that want to do your own income. It's a lot better, in my opinion, than only relying on a firm, unless you're in a good firm. You're in Round Hill or Neos or some of the better funds, then you're going to see better results. All right, so I like the commodity super cycle. It evolves. It starts with the precious metals, then it moves into the base metals, the industrial metals. It moves into commodities in general, right? It'll move into foods. It'll move into the grains. It'll move into the fertilizers. There's some natural paths. I talk about that. I teach that inside my Patreon. I have a lot of content around that with individual recommendations. The big move, and we're already in it, is around energy. I had my people being positioned, 3 months ago saying, hey, you want to be in this stuff. And just look here, look at PBRA. We have a 12-month return while EWZ, the Brazil Commodity Fund, is up 63. Look here, guys. Look at a 3-month total return. You get some at 19. I was recommending this back in December, guys, when it was 10 or $11. One of my Patreons said to me, hey, Bruce, I love everything you've done, right? But I bought your PBRA and I'm down like 2%, 3%. I said, yeah, you've had it about 10 days. I said it's in the bottoming process. So as soon as it was, he bought it $11, it went to high tens. And then I start jabbing him with emails back. Hey, did you see your PBRA is 13? Hey, did you see it as 14? Did you see it as 15? So guys, I get you in early. This is all about making money. Sometimes you're going to buy something, it's going to go down the first 2 or 3 weeks. It's all part of it. Nobody, and I mean nobody, consistently picks tops and bottoms. Some of you guys are out there paying for services that beat the S&P. I don't beat the S&P, we kill the S&P. If I'm not tripling the S&P, we're not performing. So if you guys want 18%, go pay somebody 3 times what I charge on Patreon, and they can get you 16 to 18% a year and charge you $100 a month. My top tier is 60, and you get a call every month, you get options and all of my content and recommendations. I mean, the value is crazy. I had somebody in there, and I don't know who it is, and even if I know, I wouldn't say it. But they canceled in January before we pull back in the metals. They said, "Yeah, I'm in the $10 tier. It's doubling to $20 a month, and I've been in here for 4 months and I haven't made any money." And I thought to myself, how is that even possible? That's impossible. You've been in there. You didn't listen to a single recommendation. If you'd have bought anything, okay, from August to December, the average we were up was probably 120 to 150% on anything I recommended if it was back in August, even the September, even the October, even the November. So when I get comments like that, I chuckle to myself. Or the guy who says, "Yeah, Bruce, you know what? I'm canceling. All you do is talk about gold and silver and commodities, and the spreadsheets are too small." I guess he doesn't understand pinch or expand your screen or anything like that. I mean, this is great data and it's great recommendations. There are just some foolish people out there who don't get it. And I know that's not most of you. That's the 3%ers, right? Or the 20, the 80 of you get it. And I even understand some of you cheap Charlies that come in there and say, "Well, I'll spend $10 and I'll get in your tier and I'll get your best picks for gold and silver miners and I'll cancel the next day." That's okay. That's what you want to do. But the reality is, do you know what to do when it runs up 50%? Is it going to run another 50 or is it going to retrace now? And I'm not always going to be perfect on that either, but I can give you a lot of setups. So those are my rants, guys. This isn't one and done. And I don't even mind. I understand a cheap Charlie. Sometimes I'm cheap, but I try to catch myself and understand value, right? I finally went for a high upgrade on TradingView because it's a great system. I use it a lot more now to mark my charts and do stuff for all my Patreon. I'll be doing that when I cover my Sunday update on the metals. All right, guys. So what you have here is just various funds. There's nothing, and notice this is what you want to look at because the overall commodity funds have been waking up. 12 months, other than lithium and the rare earths have been running for some time, but that's a very volatile asset. Some of you guys chase it when it's up 150% and you find out what a 50% pullback. It's like being in Tesla when it ran from 100 to 400. You're buying it at 380 and it goes back to 100. How does that feel? That's some of the stuff that I do. I chart, I talk about Elliott wave structures, I talk about probabilities and technicals and chart patterns. I try and help you assess that because there's nothing worse if you don't have a plan. Some of my people aren't good at trimming. I've really been, and even portfolio allocation. How do you allocate your gold and silver miners? Do you go out and buy 80% of the little speculative guys that can go up 20 to 50 times and avoid the almost sure 3 and 4 baggers? And do you know the difference? Do you understand what an explorer is versus a developer versus a producer? I give you credit, most of you know what a producer is. Well, do you know you can be all three of those? And do you know if you have a great CEO who understands how to operate a mine and he's a shark, he knows how to go out and acquire cheap assets in the ground with somebody he knows that's found a lot of mineralization and now he's going to acquire that because ounces in the ground without a mine can be bought very cheap. So, how you vet and how you understand these companies, right? And how you understand drilling results. And that's the kind of stuff I do to come up with my list. It's what I learned in the last commodity super cycle in the 2000s. So there's a lot of expertise there. Again, we're not all perfect, but I target 3 times at a minimum what the S&P is going to give. I think the S&P gives us 3% over a year average over the next 5 years. Is that where you want to be? Or do you want to be in a commodity super cycle where you're making 40 or 50%? But even if I only give you 3 times the S&P, I'm giving you 10% a year and it's giving you 3. But guess what that 3% is made up of? It's made up of a down year of 7, an up year of 12, a down year of 4, right? Nothing is flat and consistent. These markets, and I'm talking about currently in the world, are some of the most volatile we've ever been in and will continue to be that way. But one core theme is there: real things demand value. You can't buy, you can't print, and you can't fake real metal, real foods, lumber, grains, metals. It's not about a fake. Can you even fight a war? Can you build out an electric grid? Can you build out AI data centers without energy? Energy is a commodity, guys. We've moved from the precious metals and base metals into energy. So, do you know what to capture in energy? It's a whole bunch of different categories: upstream, midstream, downstream, AI, natural gas, oil, uranium, hydrogen. Do you understand all that? Well, that's what I talk about in my Patreon. So take a look, guys. All right. I mean, I could go through. This isn't my favorite oil play. It's the state of of Colombia Oil Company, Ecopetrol. I've owned it a few times. I mean, it's decent. I'm very bullish on oil, guys. When oil was 55, 57 in November and December, I said my targets on oil were 140 to 240 in the commodity super cycle. I had a lot of people laugh, even in my Patreon. Bruce, where do you get these numbers? I mean, people are saying oil's going to $40. Well, we're at 67 right now. I know what you're going to say. Oh, yeah, that's because of the conflict with Iran. But guys, do you understand? None of these conflicts are going away. Ukraine and Russia, Europe and Russia. It's really a proxy of Europe wishing America would stay involved to fight Russia instead of Ukraine, because they have to control their citizens, creating war. And that's just the beginning. It's the emergence of China, the Taiwan Strait, Taiwan. This is Middle East, gone on for thousands of years, and it'll continue to go on for thousands of years. That none of this stuff is dying down. And what's one thing that war does? It destroys and demands commodities. You can't fight a war without electricity. You can't fight a war without critical metals, especially in the technological age that we are now. In the future, it won't be people fighting, it'll be robots fighting, bots. Don't even get me started on AI. I'd probably scare you to death if I told you what I really thought about AI. I'm not sure if I had a child, I'd send him to college. It's an awful expensive, process when a robot will be the best doctor in the world in probably the next 2 or 3 years. Why does someone go to medical school and do all that? Yeah, I know what you're going to see. Yeah, but they don't have a personality and social and all. But the world is changing, guys, and changing at a rate that I've never seen, nor even expected 10 years ago. But it doesn't change our commodity super cycle. Just makes it slightly different. The old saying, All things are the same. It's never different this time. Well, it is different this time. Just look at silver. I had a lot of scaredy cats, even in my Patreon. Bruce, this thing is it's going to go to 50 and crash. It's done it every time. Why is it different? Because the banksters held it down, and they could through paper contracts. They had 3 to 5 times selling short than all the silver in the world through paper contracts. Well, it's hard to do that when the competition in Shanghai and Dubai and places have a physical oriented commodity exchange. There are no paper stuffers there. So if the COMEX wants to go out of business, they can, manage themselves to go out of business. Because in the past, when the Hunt brothers tried to capture the market in the 80s, they simply came out with Rule 7. It said you can no longer buy silver, you can only sell. So when you have, the old saying is power corrupts, absolute power absolutely corrupts. Well, the CFTC has absolute power. But thank God it's a different universe now where people realize, nations realize. China's the second largest physical producer of silver. Mexico's number one. And what are we seeing right now? A lot of my Patreons are up in the arm. Oh my God, some of our miners are down 30 to 40% because the cartels have gone crazy in Mexico. Well, you could anticipate that. But Mexico is a country and the government, they're getting smarter. They're saying, wait a minute, we've cowed down, we took this payola from the cartel and they're not hurting our country, they're only hurting other countries. But now they're trying to hurt Mexico because the US has shut down the borders. They've shut down the boats bringing the drugs in. So their billion-dollar empires, right, from criminals are being challenged. So they're saying, hey, we got a bunch of these foreign people down here mining our silver. Mexico's getting all the royalties of the government. We'll just go up there and we'll kidnap these guys and tell them, hey, you pay us. Protection is the oldest mafia trick in the world, right? Those of you that understand the mafia from history, it won't last. And many of you worry, oh, the price has gone way down. We'll buy more. Because guess one thing, did the fundamentals for silver change? They absolutely did not. If anything, the physical silver can't get out. So before they were processing the bars and using armored trucks and transporting. Well, now the cartel just blows up the road and stops them. They'll take the truck and take the bars. So they're saying, well, that's not smart. We're going to ship the raw material and let somebody else process the silver. Well, they can blockade that, but at least you didn't do all the work to make the bars and have them steal the bars. So they put a shortage in the market. Well, guess who? They sell a lot of that to the COMEX, who needs the physical inventory. They're short because for the 5 years in a row, we're short silver. So, guys, wake up. I get it. It's emotional. Nobody likes to see their company that they own a great silver producer in Mexico and all of a sudden it's down 40. Well, if you've owned it for 8 or 9 months, it's gone up three baggers. So, yeah, you lost half your value, but you're going to sell right at the bottom and it's going to turn. Nobody picks the tops and the bottom because the fundamental reason that silver is priced where it is because it's needed and there's a shortage. And nothing's going to change that. If there was only a COMEX and there were no other futures markets, I'd say, hey, they're going to pull the same tricks they pull and they're artificially going to suppress the price. But now people have alternatives, so they'll find themselves out of business. Who wants to operate on the COMEX if it's a crooked setup? And the whole dynamic is it is different this time. There's a physical shortage. So it doesn't mean I don't buy into the AIs and we're going to be 300 tomorrow. But I do think this year we will go back above 120, maybe to 180 or something in silver. But the timing, I'll save that for my Sunday video. And that'll go behind my paywall. That won't go out here to you guys that want to know. Look, there's a lot of people talking about it, but always ask yourself, who's talking about it? As much as I love Andy Scheckman, he's out there. He's a great guy. But he's motivated because he runs Miles Franklin. He's the CEO, been in that business his entire life. He wants to see people buy physical silver. I think it's a good thing to buy physical silver. I own a lot of it. But he's going to look at it with a slightly biased angle. Very smart guy. I like him. So he may be apt to say it's going to blow up in price right away when maybe it won't. Or maybe it's going to take another month or two. That's all. So I just always ask you, who is the person saying something? Now, there's some people that I think are evil. Like the AI, I think the AI guy that was doing all that, that's likely Chinese sponsored. And they want the US market to fail. They want London and Chicago, they want COMEX to run out of physical silver because they're buying it hand over fist. And that's not a bad thing. They do understand the market. They understand the game that the banksters have been playing. But you never know with the motivations of what the Chinese are really doing. Like now we're seeing some of these former F-35 pilots and F-22 pilots over there being, brought in by the FBI because China's been paying them under the table, these retired pilots. Shame on them. You don't have any respect for the country you're born in and raised in and went into the military in, that you're willing for money only to sell out your country. Shame on you. If it proves to be true, it's accusations at this point. But I have no respect for that. I respect our military immensely. I had a father who was a bomber pilot, B-24, did his 25 mission. I think that framed his whole existence. He always said to me that was the most thrilling thing in life and also the scariest thing in life. I never knew if I was going to come back. And I said, well, what is the worst thing what was your biggest fear when you're flying? He said, when you're flying in formation and you're seeing all the flak where the Germans, the Italians are shooting up there to shoot you out of the air. And in those days, it's like a tin can, guys, literally, prop planes. And he said, when somebody got hit in their fuel tank, and it exploded with the flak or the projectile hit them, and the plane next to you is on fire, just a massive eruption. You can feel the heat through your windows and you hear them screaming. The screams, he said, I had nightmares for a long time hearing those screams. War is awful, guys. I wish we get to a point that we don't have it at all. I always say if politicians' sons and daughters had to go fight that war, they would think twice about being a neocon. And guys, don't think it's one party or the other. There's equal neocons on both sides. I remember the guy that was the Secretary of State that came out on his deathbed and said, hey, was it McNamara? I can't remember who it was. I lived through that era. And he said, we were wrong about Vietnam. He said we thought that they may come and the communism spread to our country, so we went over there. When in reality, it was a civil war. It was a difference of opinion in the North and South, economics and everything else, whether it's communism versus whatever the other side felt. We didn't belong there. My brother did 2 tours there. Agent Orange. There's just so many things. I wish that so much of conflict wasn't there, but it is. It's a reality now. And I think it only gets worse. I don't see how these skirmishes don't happen because the populations in the countries explode, especially in the emerging and poorer countries. And in those countries are usually the most corrupt because the wealthy countries are giving them aid and aid doesn't go to the right people, never does. It's just the state of the world we live in. All right, guys, so enough of that rant. Let me finish up. I think this one's important. Now, again, this is small print, blow it up. Thank God I don't have the guy who never made any money in 4 months. That still would have to be a miracle. I obviously what he should have said is I didn't buy anything, so therefore I didn't make any money. I guess that $40 for 4 months have really bankrupted him. Okay, so this could even be added to, but these emerging market ETF plays, again, guys, this is not income oriented. You get typically an annual or a semi-annual, right, payout. So don't expect much there, but you want to look at these numbers. Look at these 12-month gains. So if you were in the Brazil 2X, I've already talked about the Brazil fund. So over the last 12 calendar months, right, it's up 56.74. Now, over 1 week, it's down. We got a couple of downs here in red. I had these set to conditional formatting, but I must have taken that off. So look at your South Korea. South Korea has still been performing. This thing has been just wild. Its 12-month gains 170, 6 month is 109, 3 month is 66.58. But I would caution you right now, just based on this, it may have a little bit left, but don't go chase the big winner. I did that when I was in my 20s and I got my first, was a precursor to 401k. I was 24 years old and I'm like in the 70s. And I was like, okay, I got this tax free account. And I analyzed the ETFs and I searched and, I don't even, we didn't even have internet. I don't even know how I did it. I have to think back. All I know is I came up and I said, oh, this fund was up 101%. Everything else was up like 10 or 15%. So I said, well, that's where I'm going. I want that 101. Well, that one was down 35% the next year. But what did I know at 23 about stocks and ETFs and I didn't know anything. I was just trying to use my math brain and logic, right? I want to get the best performer. Well, so, there's some 3X, there's some 2X. So I do a lot more in my Patreon on these guys. Here's some China stuff, Direction, emerging markets, EDC, ERX, but over 1 month, you've seen some decent performers here. Even over 1 week, you don't want to be in China right at the moment, but I like a lot of the China stuff. If I had to pick another round hill ETF, it would probably be, the BABO, the BABX or BABW, sorry. Yieldmax is BABO, but it's Alibaba, right? The underlying. So there's a lot out there, guys. Again, come over, check out Patreon, send me an email if you need help. I empathize with people. That's what I do. If you've got a portfolio and you're confused, what you should be allocating, how do I get into the commodity super cycle? What tier should I be in Patreon? I'm there to help. Yeah, it's a paid consult, but you're getting 1 hour for $75. I have people on the internet that know half of what I know that charge $500. I've got one Patreon company, they charge 600 to get in their top tier. They're sold out. They can't do any more consults. And you know what they did last year for all of their Patreons? They brag about beating the ETF, I mean the S&P. They got 18% on a 15%. Most of our stuff, we get more than 18% a month. Doesn't mean every single month. So anyway, guys, that's what I got for you. I don't want to give too much away. It's not fair to the people, behind my paywall. But those of you that wonder why I'm not doing more, I do have a campaign to start posting on X to drive um, business to my Patreon. And what we're doing now, I'll probably add a private Discord to that. It won't be the Discord that's behind my Targeted Wealth Creation YouTube channel where I'll post this along with posting it in Patreon. But I will ultimately build a private Patreon because there's just too many scammers. I don't know if you guys notice, you go in these Patreons and when they're open like mine is, anybody can go to my YouTube and join it. I've taken all the content really out of there. So if you're in that YouTube, there's nothing there for you anymore other than messages to go. I'm not allowing anybody to post data from my Patreon in there. And I'll eventually, but what I do, and I've learned Patreon a lot now, guys. So instead of um, playlist, they're collections. I have a start here. I have a lot more information to help people. But believe it or not, there's still that 5 or 10% that just think everything's going to get handed to them and they don't really know how to, dive into the collections and start looking at the various videos and content, right? But I'm working and making it a lot better. And the point is, I have chat groups now. So if you're in my all content tier, basically my second tier, then you get all of my content excluding options. Then I have an options tier that's a little more money that you get all of my content and the options recommendations. And then my top tier gets all of that, gets all of the options, gets all of the content, and gets an every other month 1 hour call with me, private consult, one on one. And that's $60 a month, guys. That's $720. If you're not making 10 to 50 to 100,000 to a half million, again, depends on portfolio size. Like I said, I can show you other Patreons that are getting 18% a year on average that have a 40, 60, 100 or 40, 60, 600 tier, and they're closing that. I was getting really pushed on my top tier, so I made it every other month because I was getting too many people to have a call. And then I get also new members joining where they want to consult. So I moved that consult from $50 to 70. It's still way underpriced. Okay. And I ask people to send me their data, send me either their portfolio, their questions, so that I know. But I've done this so much now on the fly that I can talk people through. Some of you are in a situation where you need instant income, and I get it. So I steer you that way. When you don't need instant income, you're almost always going to do better in the ETF than you are on the ETF income orient. But when I can get over 3 months, I get 54 on GDX with a small annual dividend, and I get 49.94 in an income fund with leverage on that same one. You're not losing much. So why not get the income if you need it? All right, guys, that's what I got. So again, patreon.com/TWC100, Bruce20500 at gmail.com, Bruce at targetedwealthcreation.com. Come over, check it out. I got some exciting stuff behind the paywall coming on Sunday to size up. But if you're not aware of it, guys, this commodity super cycle is going. If you're waiting and chasing Bitcoin and playing all that, it's uncertain still, guys. It may happen, it may not happen. Yeah, we'll probably bounce from where we are right now, but I haven't seen any signals that it's really digital gold, that it's a store of wealth. May happen, not yet. Okay. I will be there and I will consider it a digital commodity at that point. All right, guys, that's what I got for you. Have a great weekend. All right. This is not financial advice, and I'm not a financial advisor. Have a great one. Bye for now.